How can we apply women's myth to our current situation and to navigating it?
Women, when they go into the perimenopause shift, it's amazing how many of my clients either tell me how much they didn't know or that they had to Google it because they thought they were ill, mentally ill, broken, like losing their mind. Going into the perimenopause, midlife menopause shift, women go through what I call a triple transformation. They go through a physical transformation, which of course is the perimenopause menopause shift. And it's pre-programmed into our bodies. It's not a disease. Can it be difficult? Yes. Yes, it can be difficult. So menopause is the physical one. Then there's the midlife shift, which is the psychological shift. It's the shift within psyche that is also pre-programmed into the human experience of living a life. We have our childhood, or what I'd call maiden. We have our householder years, our teens and our 20s growing up. Then we shift into what I call Regency, which includes midlife. If we are the same person at 45 that we were at 20, then we've skipped some growing. And that's okay. You can catch up. But the psychological shift is pre-programmed into our psyches, into our souls, into our collective unconscious, just like the physical one is. And then the two together, the physical and the psychological shift together, combine to create what I consider to be a spiritual shift, where women reassess who they are, what they want to do now, and meaning, purpose, and belonging. The thing that's really miraculous about this, and I'll never get tired of talking about this, is that in the year 1900, white women statistically were dead by 51, and women of color were gone by 43. Now, there have always been, since the time of Plato, individual old women or groups of old women that lived past 80 to 90 to 100, or in the medieval fairy tales, the witch at the edge of the forest that lived to 120. Yes. But boomers and late boomers and all the women coming up behind us are the first women in the history of humanity to live past menopause as a cohort. It's never happened before. It's never happened before. Our lifespans have increased, white women by a third, women of color by double, more than double. So now there are entire generations of women living past 50, 52, 55, whenever women died. They never made it completely through the menopause shift. They never made it to the new settle out of the hormonal profile, the new normal after the midlife and the menopause and the triple shift. We're the first women to do it. We're moving into this new life stage that's like another 30 years. There's no maps, there's no models, there's no examples. So we're creating it as we live into it. And the opportunities for women in this life stage are enormous. And it's an opportunity to recreate ourselves for ourselves after spending in the householder years, say from 18 or 19 to say 45 or 50, tending our families, our friends, our colleagues, our aging parents, our siblings, whatever it is. The householder years are crazy busy. We're developing our own homes. We're developing our careers. We're going out. We're learning about ourselves and the world, and rah, 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 we're moving forward and we're going to achieve our goals and doing whatever we're doing. By the time women get to 45 or 50, a lot of them in their careers, unfortunately, still hit a glass ceiling, or they're seen as aging out of their careers because if they're seen to be looking older, or if they're seen to be having indicators of perimenopause and menopause, it's like, oh, their value is decreasing, which isn't true because we have all of our life experience, all of our career experience, our growing wisdom. It's just a shift we're going through. And the opportunity there in going through this is that at this time, if you had children, generally you have empty nest, or you're about to have empty nest. Maybe you hit a glass ceiling at your career. Maybe you decide you want to do something different. Maybe you decide you want to make changes in your life. The triple shift works together in the physiology and the psychology of women to turn their focus from outside back to themselves, back in, to say, now it's my turn. What do I want to do now? Now that I've been tending everyone else's garden for the last 25 years, it's about time to tend mine and see, what do I want to do for me now? And our shifting hormones nudge us to do that. Our shifting psyche nudges us to do that. Our shifting spirituality or spiritual understanding of our meaning, purpose, and belonging shift us to do. It's big and it can be challenging. And of course, there are losses in aging. I'm not a complete Pollyanna. Of course, we get older and we get creaky and we could get sick and we have problems and your body changes, your metabolism changes, your skin changes, your outlook changes. Yeah, there are losses, if you want to call it that, changes as we grow older. Of course there are. But within each woman's capacity to recreate herself in her circumstances, with what she has, with what she can work with. Some women choose to blow up their life completely and do something new. And some women just choose to spin their cocoon right where they are and do their transformational work in place. There's no right way to do it. There's only individual ways to cross this universal rite of passage. And to get back to the original question, which was, how does myth help us do this? All of these mythic stories that have to do with women show us that we're not the first women to go through this. For example, if a woman is having difficulty with empty nest or difficulty with a reunification relationship with a child or a daughter, the myth of Demeter and Persephone is a chest of pearls of wisdom. That myth shows us so much of the grief that women go through in the separation phase from their children. I should say some women go through, not all women. It's not a universal experience. It also shows us the need for individuation and separation on the part of the daughter. It shows us the need for reconciliation and the rebuilding of a completely new relationship, which then ends up being a dual goddess, mother and Kore, entire Eleusinian mystery foundation. That's one example. There's the myth of Ariadne and Theseus. If a woman has ever been disrespected, abandoned, left behind, lied to, led astray. When we look at these myths, not just from Greek, but Celtic, Hindu, African, Native American, you name it, the mythologies around the world are just full of these stories, which are maps. The stories are maps, and they've left mile markers, and they've left symbols, and they've left indicators, and they've left all these little tidbits like Hansel and Gretel with crows to follow metaphorically through our hard times and be able to see that, oh my gosh, I'm not broken. I'm having an experience that's unique to me because it's my experience, but I'm writing one chapter in this amazing human story of what it means to be a woman and live a life. This is my chapter. This is my experience. I found that more than anything, cracking open these ancient stories that have these universal nuggets of truth in them really gives people the opportunity to jump out of the rut. We have our problems and we're like under them, and it's hard to see our way out of them. But with myths and being able to look at these stories as human experiences, we get to look at it from the top down. We don't look at the problem from underneath. We get to say, oh, let's look at the universal aspect of it. Let's look at the myth. How can we look at this myth and understand this narrative and how my story parallels almost exactly, or pieces of it. We even just take pieces of it. I don't use this word very often, but it's magical. It really is magical. And I love it. In working in my different programs, like in the 12-week heroine's journey, we do a lot of that work. We figure out where we are exactly. You're living your life and you're working hard and you're trudging along, and it's like you're climbing a mountain, and it's a forested mountain and it's a steep trail and you got a heavy pack. So you're paying attention to every footfall. You don't want to trip over a root or a stone. You're hiking up it with your family and your friends or your colleagues. And 1 minute you're hiking the trail, the next minute it's level, and you take a step out and all of a sudden you're blinded by the sun. You're at the top of the mountain. You're in the middle of a meadow. You can't quite really see where you're supposed to go, and the trail disappears. And that's that midlife thing of, is this it? Wow. I thought I would have been a different place by now. I thought I would have done more of this by now. I thought I would have accomplished more of that by now. I thought it would feel different than it does right now. Why does my life that felt so great last week feel like a too tight shoe this week?
One thing I want to catch is how profound it is that you're talking about something new for the first time in recorded human history. How often in the unfolding of time does humanity get to explore a new archetypal chapter? An entire cohort of women around the world. This is a new contribution to human consciousness, to the collective. And it is necessarily individual, and it is a cosmic connection point. The thing I want to ask about before we get too far away is the word regency. When you say regency, what are you talking about?
In antiquity and even up through the early 60s and 70s in women's liberation movements and in goddess movements and goddess spirituality, women were considered to be living in three life stages: maiden, mother, and crone. What I researched and argued in my dissertation is that, as Jane Ellen Harrison says, the goddesses reflect the lives of the women, not the women reflecting the lives of the goddesses. As we emerge into this new life stage, we necessarily have to be in four. So I call them maiden, householder. I think it's more inclusive because not all women have children. Women live alternative lifestyles. They have partners. They focus on all kinds of things. Householder, and then regent, and then wise woman. I chose regent because this is the opportunity for women to recreate themselves for themselves, to take decisions, to run their own life, to be fully capable of having sovereignty over everything: their body, their decisions, their lives, their path, their goals, their priorities. I really thought regent was a good word. Some other scholars liked the word queen for this stage, because I'm not the first one to talk about this. The four stages of lives has been being kicked around since the early 60s by different scholars and academics. I don't like queen because I don't feel like a queen. I don't have servants. I don't have unending supplies of money. I don't have a treasury that I can dip into. I don't get to travel wherever I want. I don't have the freedom from worry about anything. I'm living a life, after the ecstasy, baby, the laundry, as Ram Dass said. So to me, queen is really set aside and a specialized sort of pampered image to me. It's an image that implies a certain level of wealth.
And it's removed from the daily life. The rules
Yes.
don't apply the same way to a queen or a king or a prince. It's royalty and it's symbolic in a different way. So regent allows for this inner experience of sovereignty.
And traditionally, a regent is someone who holds the ruling space for someone who's not old enough. The prince is too young to rule, or the princess is too young to rule. So the regent rules until they grow up. And so to me, the regent woman holds her throne, her seat of power, I prefer to call it, for her wise woman to come. So regent women, I have this crazy thing that I wrote called the Regent's Manifesto. And it basically talks about what it means to be a regent woman. And it says that you're in the midst of perimenopause and menopause and midlife, and that you acknowledge it and you choose your way forward. But a regent woman, to me, chooses to have sovereignty in her life, or desires to have sovereignty and chooses to be regent. Her power isn't given to her by another authority. Regent women can lead, they can administrate, make decisions for herself, and achieve her own priorities and goals.
Before you said holding the throne for the wise woman to take it, I was thinking of it in a different direction, to hold space in the world for the younger generation to be able to manage the challenges that we face.
Oh, I love that.
Like holding the human family here, or the human civilization, which has been the sort of province of this overactive hero who won't put down the hero's quest. And that is such a restless energy. But for the regents to be able to hold it, to have that in the conversation, it just changes the way I think about the human family.
You just changed the way I think of regency. And certainly this first generation of regent women is laying down all of the metaphysical paths for the women who come behind to follow. And not that you want anyone to follow your path, but certainly thinking of the myths and all the different fairy tales and folk tales and symbology and all the different beautiful things within archetypal psychology. Learning how to utilize them to make the most of regency is an example that I think is definitely one that's going to be good for women to follow. And the other thing about regency, my passion is climate change, because I think it's over the top of everything else that needs to be fixed.
It's the only problem we've never faced before. Everything else has a place somewhere in history, but climate change is something that is actually existential that we don't have a pattern for.
Yeah, it's an apex predator that we've created.
Yeah.
And the turn of the 20th century, 1900, not only did women's lifespans begin to expand, it was the birth of psychology. It was the real expansion of archetypal psychology with Freud and Jung and all that came with them. Toni Wolff, Marion Woodman, all the great female archetypal psychologists and psychotherapists that began writing and working. And it was the rise of the acknowledgement of, if you want to call it, the feminine. There's the feminine and there's the masculine. Archetypally, we all have both of them inside us. It's not a gender thing. I want to just make that really clear. The archetypal feminine, if we look at the work of Jung and if we look at some of the myths and the way the gods and the goddesses and their stories came from the psyches of the people of those times, we see that the feminine is so tied to the natural world. And these ideas that are supposed to be from the feminine archetypal baseline, such as compassion, empathy, creativity, communitas, communication, are all of the attributes that we need to address climate change. And I find it interesting that women are getting this entirely new life stage. We're living into this entirely new life stage when it is archetypal female energies that are so deeply tied to the natural world at a time when we have to save the natural world. I think that's more than a synchronicity.
I just went to the myth of Actaeon and Artemis, where Actaeon's punishment, he leaves the city of Athens and he comes upon Diana or Artemis bathing in the pool, and she turns him into a stag and he's torn apart by his own dogs. And so what this myth demonstrates to me is an anxiety about the natural world. You're safe inside the walls of Athens. You're safe inside the confines of masculine civilization. To step into the realm of the feminine is to risk being torn apart, but that's also a dissolution of the ego, because now you're in the realm of the feminine where different rules apply, different structures are required, and those structures are not even able to be perceived through the masculine perception.
When you look at Forbes magazine, you couldn't get more Apollonian, but they have the world's 100 most powerful women, or Forbes 50 over 50, which of course interests me. These women are in every sector: politics, culture, entertainment, business, healthcare, nonprofit, philanthropy. Our power and influence is growing, but I'm waiting for the geometric explosion. And this is the thing that has so much potential in it. By 2030, in the US alone, there will be over 87 million women over 45 in the US alone. What could 87 million women accomplish if they worked together? Almost anything. We could change politics in 2 election cycles. We could get shit done. We could fix stuff. What we don't realize as a people group is that, because we've been so busy during our householder years, is that we control over 85% of US domestic spending, discretionary spending, billions of dollars, everything from homes to the furniture in the homes, to cars, to vacations, to school supplies, to clothes, to groceries, to landscaping supplies, to whatever it is. And we have political power because of our numbers. We have economic power. We have cultural power. And we're growing into this new life stage. And we have to learn how to grab this and use this power for the greater good.
Something you just said a moment ago is, in 2 election cycles, which you say it with that perspective, that's 8 years. A lot can be done. But 8 years, the way we think of it now, nobody's thinking more than a month ahead. And for women in the stage of Regency, who are now looking at such a large percentage of life in the rearview mirror, being able to see what 8 years looks like and what's possible, to be able to coordinate resources and goals on that type of scale. Our government can't think more than 2 years ahead. Just that perspective alone can change the game.
Whether you want to talk about being red or being blue or purple, somewhere in between, I don't know any woman who doesn't want her children or her family's children or her friends' children or her sister's children to grow up with clean water, clean air, healthy food, good education, good health care. I don't know any woman who would say, no matter her political affiliation, I don't care if my sister's children and their children grow up in a climate ravaged world. I've never heard anyone say that. No matter how much you and I recycle, no matter what kind of light bulbs we use, no matter how much solar we have on our roof, individuals are not going to fix it. It has to be large, industrial, corporate, mega change. And it has to happen quickly. And the only way that's going to happen is for the people to insist that it happen. Because in capitalism, money and profit is the driver. It has its own psyche and its own persona and its own demands and its own needs. And it doesn't lend itself to listening to the small person.
I don't know that I'm a huge optimist in terms of what's going to happen in the next 20 years. So it becomes about really righting this ship to get through the choppy waters of time so that we have a civilization on the other side. We've got some Mad Max stuff ahead if we don't.
It's like trying to course correct on an enormous aircraft carrier. You can't do it in 1 second. And the systems that we're working with or trying to change are so enormous. So yes, I think it's going to get wild and woolly in the next 20 years because the carbon's already up there. We're going to hit 2 degrees or close to 2 degrees if we don't batten down the hatches hard and soon. Just in the last year, the flooding, the tornadoes, the blizzards, this winter in California. I've lived here for 29 years. This is the wettest, coldest winter we've had. In the summer, it used to get cold by Halloween, and we were outside swimming past Thanksgiving. We were having 90-degree weather in November. Things are changing, and in geologic time, they're changing very fast.
I'm back in the Artemis myth again, what this actually looks like when patriarchal mentality steps into the space of the archetypal feminine, which is the realm of weather, wildness. This is what it looks like to be torn apart. The stags are the weather. What are some of your insights into how we might move forward?
To start with, put on your own oxygen mask first. Granted, there are some women that sail through this perimenopause, menopause thing and have very few indicators, very little trouble, just sail right through it. And that's fantastic. But that's maybe 25% of women. And there are differing degrees of difficulty with it. Some women have more difficulty with the physical. Some women have more difficulty with the psychological. And it's not like one happens and then the other starts. They overlap and they spiral together. And the sure tapestry of your life begins to unweave. And even though the threads are unwoven here, on this side, something new is being woven. But in the middle, you're living in the tension of everything you knew, believed, and thought was going to be the way it was forever is falling apart. And there's some kind of liminal space that you're in. As women go through these changes and they come to look at the difference between growing and living into the next cycle, into the next age of being human, maybe giving less focus to the patriarchal ideals of what a woman should be or should look like or should act like or should be like, and women start getting to that point where a lot of my clients say at 50, I don't give a blank what anybody thinks about me anymore. I realized what a waste of time that was. And once they start to get a little bit more sure-footed as to who they are now, then they can turn around and say, what are you passionate about? What is it? Is it climate? Is it healthcare? Is it banking regulation? Is it politics? Some women decide to get active in their communities. Some women start thinking about legacy, which is huge in relationship to climate change. Legacy for your family, legacy for your community, legacy for your nation, for the planet. Other women think, what can I do to serve? A lot of women coming out of their householder years then decide to go into politics. The wave we had in 2016 of women being elected, I think most of them were over 40. So for women to get a sure footing and then decide, okay, where can I help? What's
Mhm.
important to me? And for some women, it may just be that they're like, you know what? I'm done. I just want to play with my grandkids and bake cookies and work in my garden. And that's their life. And they have the absolute right to choose that. And I have no judgment whatsoever. But I generally find that women at this life stage, when they get a little bit of a sure footing, then take a look around and decide what it is they want to do. And even if what you do is be a good citizen, doing all the right things and vote. Oh, dear God, vote.